let's make sure that we approach that with, lots of questions. This is your session as much as it is ours. If you want to contact us, you have myself and Fiona's email addresses, and you can also contact us via Teams at any time during the 2 weeks that we have between these workshop sessions. And we want to just remind you that attendance at these sessions is required if we're going to award you with a certificate and a digital badge at the end. So you'll know the dates now of all the workshops between now and the end of the workshop series. If you know for a fact that you can't attend some of those sessions, then please contact us so that we can make sure that you can still meet all of the requirements and all of the requisites, so that we can give you a certificate and a badge at the end to make sure you get the kind of value and the kind of proof that you've done these sessions with us. Okay, so I'm moving very quickly to a brief recap from last time. So last time we spoke about curriculum. We began these workshops by talking about what a curriculum is, how a curriculum functions, and the importance of curriculum within higher education. I gave you this model, which I spent a little bit of time talking about, which is one of the many ways in which we can understand what a curriculum is and what it does. So a curriculum is a way of connecting society, economy, culture, and environment. And the curriculum has a two-way relationship with these social institutions. So the curriculum should be responsive to changes and needs at the level of a society, economy, the culture, and the environment. But it also prepares students to be active members of society, to contribute to the economy, to have all of the values and the beliefs and the durable skills required to contribute to the advancement of culture. And a curriculum can also help shape the environment, for example, by ensuring that everything we do embeds the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals within our curriculum as well. And a curriculum has all of these elements. These are just some of the elements that we're looking at on the screen. There's some of the core elements of a curriculum, but right in the middle is that important thing, which is a rationale. So we want to make sure that as we're designing curricula and as we're delivering teaching, learning, and assessment activities, we can very, very clearly justify all of the different choices that we have to make. And in these workshops, Fiona and I are really going to support you to develop a strong rationale for curricula and curriculum choices, all of the curriculum choices that you're going to make as you design curricula in the context of the Jordanian National Qualification Framework, and carry out wonderful learning and teaching to future graduates in your universities. And we began last time, didn't we, talking about some of the purpose of curriculum, and we started by talking about the sort of student to graduate journey, that transition. This built very much on the analogy that Fiona spent so much time talking about at the workshop in Jordan, in Amman, a few weeks ago, or a few months ago now, which is the idea that a curriculum is a vehicle. So curriculum is all about transformation. And in order for us to design curricula effectively, we have to have a good understanding of who our students are. And we should be able, through a kind of analysis of our students and through really striving to take a student-centered approach to the design of learning activities, we should know who our students are. What is it that they know when they join our programs? What is it that they can do? What previous knowledge and experience do they have? And then which of those durable qualities, those attributes that we spoke about last time, do they already have? And then we should be able to jump forward to have a model of our graduates. So what is it that on completion of a program, the graduates know, the graduates can do, and how do the graduates show up in the world? How do they have that metacognition and those critical skills? So the curriculum then is about closing the gap between these two realities, the model of a student that we've developed, and then the model of a graduate that we're going to come up with. And in that sense, a curriculum is about supporting students to make that journey to undertake that transformation. So we describe a curriculum as a student-centered process because it's much more about the student's journey than it is about us as educators trying to tell all of the students everything that we know about the subject. And it's also situated because we think about curricula in the context of those bigger social processes and social institutions within a country like Jordan. So the curriculum exists within the context of the society, the culture, the environment, and the economy. Okay, so that's kind of where we left things in terms of our exploration of curriculum last time. And we had some homework activities that we left you with, because in order for us to really be able to come on this journey through the BOLD process, we need you to have a course in mind that you're going to design or redesign as we work through all of the different workshops that we're going to take you through. So we asked you in your university groups to choose a course or a module. And on the right-hand side of this slide, these are all the courses that you've told myself and the British Council that you're going to design or redesign. Some of these are existing courses that you're going to redesign as well. This can change, but I think if you are going to change and you're going to look at a different module, then it's very, very important that you make that change quite quickly, because from this week onwards, we're really going to be doing that design. We're going to be looking at the course in detail and starting to design or redesign the learning objectives, the assessments, the teaching activities. We're going to be thinking about developing a module design storyboard. And once you'd chosen that module, we asked you then to do a little bit of homework for us, which is in your university teams, we wanted you to think about why you've chosen this module. If it's a new module, then why is the module being introduced within your university? What's the rationale? What are some of the drivers for introducing this new model? If it's an existing module, why have you chosen to redesign it? Is it because the module is working very, very well and you want to try and improve it further? Or is it a module which is problematic? Are there things that might not be working so well on the module? Or are there kind of drivers for change within the institution or within the sector that have caused you to think about this? Have the requirements for accreditation changed? Do you have a new student market that you're trying to open up this module to? Are you choosing a module that's been face-to-face that now has to be delivered online? So these are all questions that we asked you to have a little bit of a think about. And then your homework was to produce a small paragraph where you described the aims of the module and where you defined some of the disciplinary knowledge, so some of the subject-specific knowledge that students are going to gain through the module, and some of those durable skills that we want students to develop as they move through the module. So those critical thinking skills and metacognition that we defined in the presentation last week. And
John, can I just jump in there a minute? Two things.
Of course, yep.
And we just need to pick up something from the chat. But Yarmouk University, our colleagues from Yarmouk made a good decision for them in that they're not focusing on a module, so to speak. They're focusing on a training program that is for staff, and that works for them. And there will be bits of our program as we're working through that we'll just need to think about that. So if there is anybody else in the room who's made a choice and thinking, not sure that that is the choice I wanted to make, if it isn't a credit-bearing module, then there are opportunities to focus on something else. But for Yarmouk, this is a really good opportunity for them to be able to explore and enhance what they're doing already. And then there's somebody in chat who can't see their name on that list, but it might just be when you took a snapshot of that list, Sean. I'm just trying to find
which university?
I'm just trying to find it. It just disappeared down there. No, I can't now see the email. I can't now see the message.
Al-Zaytuna.
Oh yes, yeah, Al-Zaytuna.
Okay, I will make sure that we add that.
Sorry, Sean. I know interrupted your flow there.
Not
Apologies.
at all, not at all. And for the colleagues at Yarmouk, I just want to reassure you that the BOLD framework works for staff development. And I know this because we have redesigned our own staff development programs at Strathclyde using the BOLD framework. And actually, when we started rolling this out to the university, the example that we used and all the templates that we used were modules that we ourselves had there were CPD opportunities that we ourselves had redesigned using BOLD. So all you have to do when you hear me say the word student is you think about the participants. And when you hear me talk about module, a module is just a unit of learning. So you think about what your unit of learning would be. If it's not a module, then what's the appropriate unit of learning? Is it a series of workshops, or is it a staff development opportunity? So any way in which you make this relevant to your own context, I think will be really, really important. And that's great. So we'll get Al Zaytuna University added to that list, and I'll make sure that we have a team set up for you as well. So I wanted then to just, because you'd done this homework, it's really, really important as an educator that when you ask people to do something, there's some sort of a like it's meaningful. There's a meaningfulness to it. So I wanted to make sure that we're honoring your contributions to the homework by providing you with a little bit of sort of feedback on some of the pieces of homework that you submitted. So I've highlighted a few of the teams that are here. All of the homework that was submitted was really, really good. Really, really great examples of good practice. And one of the things that I loved was the variety of courses that were available. So some of you have chosen, very, very sort of subject-specific modules to look at. Some of you, like I said, have chosen staff development opportunities to look at. Some of you are working with subjects like finance and economics and business, and some of you are working with modules which are much more digital in their outlook. And the University of Jordan have chosen to redesign a module on digital libraries. And I thought the way in which the aim was articulated, the University of Jordan, was really, really nice. The aim, which gives this overall kind of high-level snapshot of what the module is. So the aim that the colleagues at University of Jordan had articulated was, this module equips students and professionals with the necessary skills and knowledge to navigate and utilize digital information effectively, fostering a more informed and connected society. And that aim was so succinct, and it was understandable to anyone reading that. So this aim, if you took this and put it in a prospectus for your university, then students who are thinking about this module would know instantly what this module is about and what the purpose of this module is. And then you provided some really nice examples of disciplinary knowledge, so things that were specific to the subject. So a comprehensive understanding of what digital libraries are, their history, evolution, and their role in the modern information ecosystem is a very, very clear statement of some subject-specific knowledge. This is about the discipline. This is about the area in which you're working. And similarly, technological tools, platforms, and software used in the creation, maintenance, and use of digital libraries. But you also, University of Jordan, had some really, really nice examples of durable skills. And I've pulled out a few of these. So when we're talking about preparing students for future developments in the field of information management, this is really, really nice because the disciplinary knowledge, the things that you had defined, what digital libraries are, and what various technological tools, platforms, and software are used in the creation and maintenance of these digital libraries, that might change in the student's career once they graduate. And we would probably expect that they'll change in the next 2 to 5 years because of rapid changes that are occurring in society around digital technology as well. But you want your module to prepare students for future developments so that they can constantly respond to changes in the environment. So it's not just giving students knowledge. We want to develop students' capacity to gain new knowledge. So we want to develop students as lifelong learners, to make sure that they remain curious and that they remain inspired about developments within this field. And that's lovely. That's really, really nice. And it also will help us when we come to define learning objectives for the module, because those learning objectives will have to address some of the change that we want students to be able to respond to. And we'll have to provide students with opportunities to explore knowledge, to make, to play around with knowledge and to develop these graduate attributes. You also mentioned ethical considerations and legal issues as well. Ethical considerations are something that will never change and will really, really support students to continue to advance beyond their graduation. So very well done to all of you, but also well done to the University of Jordan. Fiona, do you want to maybe, would it be okay for you to share maybe one or two comments as well about the example? Are you happy for me to?
The bit I was just about to type something in the chat. I'm a bit worried about the fact that you are starting to read my mind. That's like, oh, that's not so good. The bit that I was about to type in the chat was what you just said was so important in terms of, we often think of learning objectives as being things that look backwards on what has been learned, rather than with that future orientation to what we want students to be able to do. And there's a fine balance in there, because how we use learning objectives, and I know we're going to be talking about this, is to test knowledge and understanding, but that's only a partial way in which we can use a learning objective to move us from the current state of the student to the future state as a graduate. So that's what I wanted to say, that you were, and to amplify what you'd said there, is that with learning objectives, if we're always just looking backwards, then we're not taking the opportunity to think about what we want that student to be able to do in the future. Thank you for reading my mind. I'm now going to delete my text. Yeah.
Fiona, you would be terrible at poker, because when you have something that you want to share, or when you're excited about something, your face gives it away. So I always know when.
I'm terrible. Honestly, I'm just like an open book. I can't keep, well, I can keep secrets. Well,
yeah. Excellent. Princess Maya University for Technology, so PSUT, have chosen a course about the Internet of Things. And what was really nice about this was it's an introduction to the Internet of Things. And again, when we come to design our learning objectives, if we know the level of study that we're going to be working with, this will really help us to make sure that the learning objectives are appropriate to the level of study, because an introductory module will have learning objectives that might tend to focus on particular areas of Bloom's taxonomy. So that was really, really nice that you had specified the sort of level of study. And as we go through these workshops, we'll be asking you to think very carefully about the level of study that you're designing for as well. But again, a really nice aim to equip students with a comprehensive understanding of the Internet of Things. And you also used in your aim the opportunity to tell us what would happen by the end of the course and by the end of the module. Again, you had a really, really nice blend of disciplinary knowledge, so things that are specific to the knowledge and understanding of the Internet of Things and how to develop the Internet of Things, so how to develop IoT applications, architecture and components. But then you also had some really, really nice durable skills as well. So you want students to be able to develop creative thinking and to come up with novel solutions to problems. So again, that tells us exactly the sort of activities that we want to design for the students. We can't just focus on that disciplinary knowledge. We have to get students playing with knowledge in creative ways if they're going to develop those durable skills. You talked about teamwork and collaboration as well. So when we design the learning activities, it's very, very obvious that we need to have opportunities for the students to do things in groups, to work in teams and to collaborate with each other. And again, that passion for continuous learning and adaptation is very, very similar to the durable skills that the University of Jordan mentioned as well, because we want students to be lifelong learners. So how do we design learning activities that encourage their curiosity, that encourage them not just to soak up information like sponges, but to go and seek out new information and to test that knowledge and to think critically? This is really, really important. I had highlighted Yarmouk University for the reason that Yarmouk mentioned in the chat as well. So this is a really nice example of how the bold approach can be applied to an academic practice in HE certificate. And I love this because this is what I teach in my university as well. So I was really, really excited to see Yarmouk have chosen this as their kind of module or their unit of learning to design. Your disciplinary knowledge as an academic practitioner are things like, frameworks like the Jordanian National Qualification Framework and effective approaches to teaching in higher education. But then some of those durable skills are the qualities and the values and the beliefs that we want people who teach higher education in Jordan to be able to develop. So a commitment to personal development is so important there, because how can I continue to enhance the quality of what I do if I don't take the time to focus on my own development? So personal development is really, really important in there. And then some of these values which resonate with the professional standards framework, the advanced HE document that we work with in the UK, how to provide equity of opportunity for learners. This is something that's not just a technique. There aren't just techniques about how to be inclusive and how to design inclusive and accessible frameworks. We really have to possess those values and those beliefs within ourselves in order to do that effectively. So how then do we instill these values, and how then do we instill these beliefs in the people who attend this certificate, the people who study it? That's something that's really, really important when you think about how you design learning opportunities. How do we bring values and beliefs into the conversation? And then the last one I wanted to focus on was the University of Petra, who are looking at a supply chain management course. And I thought the aims here were lovely as well, because the aim is to create leaders in supply chain management who can innovate and drive efficiency in global logistics networks and address real-world challenges in the logistics industry. And I chose this one because I don't know anything about supply chain management. But if I read that first sentence, which I did, I thought I would really like to study that course. Like, I really, really would. It was so inspiring and so aspirational. The students who read that statement would have a sense of the aspirations that you have for their development. You want me as my teacher to become a leader in supply chain management. You want me to innovate and you want me to drive
مش عارفني
efficiency.
ايميل ومش ايميل مشان ايش الايميل عشان الهاي
All of that is
يعملها
so
فورورد.
all of that is so it's so inspiring to know that you, as an educator, you have these aspirations for your students. And the more that we can convey and communicate that to students, I think the better for the marketability of our courses, but also for the relationships that we develop with our students. And if you remember back to the slide that I showed you about curriculum, where the purpose of the curriculum is to transform students into graduates, one of the most important things that enables that transformation to take place is the relationships that students develop with one another, with the syllabus that you create, but also with you as educators. And the more that we can bring this way of thinking into our module design and our approach to curriculum design, the better, I think. So those were just some reflections on your homework, and to say thank you very much to all of you. We didn't have time to go through 28 universities and give some reflections on your homework. But when you submit your homework for this week, we will actually go into Teams and provide comments on every single piece of homework. So you can expect that to be something that happens in the next session. I'm going to move on, but again, Fiona, I don't know, do you have you put something in the chat there? Do you want to say it out loud?
I think it's you were talking about the aims and you were, you know, the supply chain management. I've recently learned what that is, mainly because of being in the UK and Brexit completely messed it up. So I think I understand a little bit about it. My key point was that an aim should be exciting. It should want the student, when they read it, should go, I know why I want to do that. So conveying that sense of opportunity and interest and purpose is really vital. One of the things that I've tried to do in writing aims is write them actually for the student. You will. Rather than about them. So it's one thing to think about, but honestly, this is really, really good work. And yes, we can't look at all of them, but we are going to be in there feeding back in the next couple of weeks. So thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, so that was just a little recap, and I'm conscious of time, and you have to remind me as well that we only have 2 hours with you, because I could talk about these things all day, every day with you. So I'll do my very, very best to stick to time. So what we're going to do is building up on that foundation where you've all chosen a unit of learning, you've written some aims, and you've identified some disciplinary knowledge and some durable attributes. What we're going to do now is have some time to think about learning objectives. So, learning objectives, I've got this definition here, and I think the definition is more important than the word that we use, but this will kind of become clear when I talk through this slide. So, what I mean when I say learning objective is I mean a specific, measurable statement that describes what successful students will know, will be able to do, and will value upon the completion of learning. So this is a statement, a specific measurable statement that describes what successful students will know, will be able to do, and will value upon completion of units of learning. And that relates very, very closely to our disciplinary knowledge, critical thinking, which is how we apply that knowledge, and then metacognition, which is about the student's values and beliefs. So a learning objective shouldn't just stay at the level of knowledge, it should describe the person. It should describe some of the attributes of the person who emerges at the end of your unit of learning. But I know that learning outcomes, learning objectives, learning goals, they're all phrases which are used quite interchangeably. And the phrases that you use at your university, or the phrases that you use in your paperwork for curriculum approval, and some of the terms that are used in Jordan, we might be talking about learning outcomes when we mean learning objectives, and vice versa. And I don't want us to get bogged down in the words that we use. What I want is to make sure that we have an understanding of the meaning, the definition of those words. And then, like, if I say learning objectives, I've tried to change that word before when I've gone to a university and I've known that they've used a different set of words, and I just can't do it. I always fall back into using the term learning objective because that's how I've been raised, how I've been brought up in higher education. So I will use that term, but if the definition that you associate was with the word learning outcome, then make that connection yourself. Use terms that fit your context. Okay. And what I want us to do is have a little brief moment for a quick group discussion. I want to know, why do you think that learning objectives are important for each of these groups within higher education? So why are learning objectives important for educators, for students, for quality assurance, and for external stakeholders like employers and accrediting bodies? So we can do this a number of different ways, but let's just try for educators first of all. Why are learning objectives important for educators? And if anyone wants to raise their hand and just come in and share some insights into why you think learning objectives are important for you as educators, then I would love to hear some contributions from the room. I've been talking too long and I've put everyone to sleep.
Excuse me, Sean. Do we need to answer on the chat or here?
We can answer if you just put your hand up and share to the group. We can have a nice group discussion about this. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Louis from oh, you've just put your hand down again.
Don't worry, folks, there isn't a right answer to any of this. So just in case you're thinking that Sean has got the magic answer and he's waiting for you to say the right thing, please don't. So I think we have got some hands up, Sean.
Okay.
Just...
Dr. Najwa from MEU. Dr. Najwa from MEU.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. I'm Dr. Najwa from the MEU. I think learning objectives as a roadmap for the course delivery for the students. I think it's as put a clear direction for you, for the students, and you can connect it with measurable outcomes, or how you can measure the outcomes that you want to achieve at the end of the course. So I think when you start thinking with your learning objectives, you have to choose the suitable phrases or the suitable verbs that you have to choose, so you can measure the outcomes, and you can link the objectives, the learning objectives, with your criteria, with how you can measure the outcomes, and how you will link the assessments with this course.
Thank you very much indeed. Fiona, I'm just trying to help a few people get into the meeting who still can't. Would you be okay to kind of chair this part of the discussion?
Yeah, so that's lovely. So learning outcomes as a roadmap and learning outcomes as a means to measure. And really importantly, you made that lovely link there, Dr. Najwa, to assessment, so that we've got that clear connection between what we want to happen and how we're going to know that it has. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Dr. Anis, come on in. From Philadelphia University. I always want to start singing Philadelphia Freedom at that point, but I won't. Okay. Because
hello, can you hear me?
Like rain. Dr. Anis, go on. Tell us
can you hear me?
What your thoughts are.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, and I'll keep my answer brief. I think it is important for educators to stay focused throughout the whole module on the target, and for the students to know what to expect from this module.
Yeah, oh, that's really nice, and you're bringing in that focus on students. It's a really good point about staying focused, because there is so much that you might want to put into a module or the learning opportunity, but actually it can't fit because there aren't that many hours. So about staying focused and the students know what to expect. That's lovely. Thank you so much, Dr. Anis. That's really great.
And one more notice, I'm not a doctor, I'm a master's degree. So
well,
Anis is fine, no need for doctor.
That's okay. That's okay. Wonderful. I could make you an honorary one for the purpose of this workshop. Would that be any good? I can do that. I have powers.
Okay.
Thank you, Anis.
Thank you.
Lubna, Dr. Lubna, what's your thoughts?
Lubna Al-Jazi from PSUT.
Yes, go on. What's your thoughts about educators and the purpose of learning objectives for educators?
For educators, I think the learning objective provide a clear roadmap for what you need, and for assessment alignment, can objective help in designing assessment that accurately measures whether a student have achieved the desired learning outcomes.
Yeah.
And clear objectives enable educators to demonstrate that they have met their teaching goals, which is important for, I think, for professional development and evaluations.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're making that connection as well to assessment. Absolutely. That's what the next workshop, the one in 2 weeks' time, will be looking at. So I'm really glad we're getting that clear link between those assessment objectives. We need to think about how they connect directly to what we're going to assess and how we're going to assess it. So that's lovely. Let me take one more focused on students, and the other hands up, I might just cheat and ask you to talk about students, but educators. So Dr. Asma, what's your thoughts about learning objectives and their importance for educators?
Sorry about this. I think the objectives guide the development of the curriculum and instructional materials and the teaching strategies of the any module or any program. And educators can plan lessons, activities, and assessments that align with these objectives, and to make sure that or ensuring a cohesive and structured learning experience. So it is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that importance. I'm going to hand back to Sean in a minute, but it is that importance of we start with the learning objectives. And you know, it's no surprise that Sean has made sure that this workshop, having had the first one, which was what is a curriculum, we now go into the learning objectives, because they are the things that drive the process. It seems so obvious to say that, but can I just say it isn't necessarily. I did some work yesterday with somebody and they started with content. So it is not unusual for people to start in a different place. What we're doing in these workshops is make sure that you, and you're already doing it, but everybody in the university starts with the learning objectives and builds the curriculum through those. Sean, I'm handing back to you.
Wonderful. Yes, so I know we have a few more hands up, but if colleagues could also share some thoughts about why learning objectives are important for students, that would be very, very wonderful. So Abdul Rahman, if you would be happy to share some thoughts about the importance of learning objectives for educators, but also please opportunity for students as well.
Hello, good morning,
Good
UK
morning.
time, and good afternoon, Jordan time, or almost noon. Now I want to build on my colleagues, Dr. Najwa from Middle East University. She mentioned that it will be a roadmap for educators. So for students, it will help them get clear expectations. What are they expected to get from this program, and what they are going to achieve, or what the knowledge that they will acquire after completing the program. So for students, having clear expectations is one of the main, let's say, outputs of the learning objectives, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. That's such an astute answer. And it connects back to some of the points that we made when we were looking at the homework that was submitted. Because if we want students to develop these durable skills, to be lifelong learners, we don't just want them to know about the Internet of Things today, but we want them to be able to be self-directed learners so that they're always curious and they're always learning. Then we can start this by involving them in a discussion about the learning objectives so they can plan their learning and so they can direct how they learn and how they progress through the module. So it all connects back to this. And that was a very insightful statement, Dr. Abdul Rahman. Ahmed Madan, you have your hand up. Please tell us why are learning objectives important?
Yes, I want to talk about motivation and engagement. I think this point is important for both educators and students. So it's important for students to engage more in activities in any course or a program. Clear learning objectives will provide a clear expectation of what students need to learn and achieve, and maybe it reduce uncertainty and any confusion that will maybe make it in the course. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, what a wonderful insight. It's just made me think about something in a new way, actually, for the first time. So thank you. But if students arrive in our course and they don't know what the learning objectives are because they can't find them, they're buried away on page 17 of the handbook, or they're not clearly written, then how can we expect students to engage and be motivated? You know, will come and they will sit there and they will just sit back and say, okay, educate me. So learning objectives, if they're clear and they're well written and they're communicated effectively to students, then they can begin that process of engaging students in the learner journey. And I had never thought about it in that way. So thank you very much, Doctor, for sharing your insights in this regard.
Sean, that is so important. And the number of times, you know, one of the things that I did in the past was chair many committees where programs were being approved or reapproved. And the language of learning objectives should be for the student and not for the academic, because they don't understand what the learning objective actually means. They might well, at the end of the course or the module, understand what the learning objective meant, but it needs to be readable. The student has got to be able to look at it and go, oh, I know what that means. And so we easily fall into the trap of academic speak, and it's like nobody understands at that point what the objectives were. So that's why I'm always learning about learning objectives and always learning to try and make them better. And I've been doing it for 30 odd years. Dear.
Thank you. Thank you, Fiona. Okay, colleagues, a few more hands up as well. Feel free to share some thoughts about why learning objectives are important for quality assurance and for external stakeholders as well. So next, Professor Kadumi from ASU.
Hi, everybody. I'm just talking about that learning objective. Can you hear me clearly, by the way?
Yes, yes, Professor.
Okay. I say it's the benchmark that we should follow or we should learn if we are going on the right track or not. As once we are going to draw our curricula, we have in our committee one of the stakeholders who provide us with the recent trend in the market. So accordingly, we adapt according to the market needs. So we learn if we are on the right track or not. That's why I consider the learning objective, it's the roadmap, if you are doing things in the right way or not.
Thank you, Professor. Again, what a wonderful insight, and thinking about the importance of learning objectives from an kind of industrial perspective as well, thinking about the graduate, and if we know that our learning objectives help to match the capabilities of the graduate with the needs of employers, by actually having a conversation with our employers and adjusting our learning objectives accordingly, that's a really crucial way in which we can make sure that our learning and teaching is relevant and is authentic and will prepare graduates for success in the world of work. So thank you, Professor. Again, a really wonderful and a very valuable insight. Thank you. We have Ahmad Al-Hosban next.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I am Dr. Ahmad Al-Husban. If you hear me, yes. My answer will be short because, as you said, it's a measured statement that allow the students to know and what they are able to do and what are the values. So the objectives as a part of the curriculum in a specific module, the educators need to declare their objectives and goals, yes, and the students need to know where they are going at the end of the module, so they can compare at the end between the achievement they had and between the educators. So the educators, they know what's the suitable methodology that they need to follow to reach with the student in that vehicle up to the hill to that goal, and it should be measured. So the quality assurance can measure this in direct or indirect measurement tools. And at the end, those values, the external, the outcome will go to graduation in the external local market. So the employers, and they have to need also from the objectives what the values the educators had put in the beginning of that course as a part of the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmad. And you've managed to connect all four together, the importance for educators, students, quality assurance, and external stakeholders in your statement. So thank you very, very much. Again, such wonderful insights. Dr. Mais, and I think we might take just a few more, and then there'll be lots of other opportunities for us to contribute to group discussions, but maybe we'll move on and after a few more contributions. So Dr. Mais, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon for people here in Jordan. So first of all, please allow me on behalf of myself and the group of the University of Jordan, we would like to express our sincere gratitude for providing this opportunity to learn more about this important thing. So Akashi, British Council, Strathclyde University, thank you so much. And regarding learning objective outcomes and how important is it, I was thinking that
Doctor, I think we might have lost you.
Oops, sorry. Hello.
Hello.
Oh yeah, I was thinking that all of the concepts, all these elements, educators, students, quality assurance, and external stakeholders, they are all crucial and important. And sometimes you can't just classify one important than the other. I was thinking, referring to student, just a quick insight, that imagining the learning objective as a receipt. And this recipe outlined the ingredients and steps needed to create specific dish. So similarly, I was thinking that learning objectives defines the knowledge and the skills needed for students to achieve a desired learning outcomes. In addition, talking about the quality assurance, I was thinking actually specifically regarding the data-driven improvement. So learning objective provide, like was just the professor said before, it's like a benchmark to measure student performance. This allows us as educators and the quality assurance colleagues to identify areas where the curricula might need improvement. And that for me is crucial as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I love this idea of it being a recipe. And you know why I love this specifically? Because in some of the discussions around learning objectives, you find that there is, in some small parts of the higher education community, people really don't like learning objectives because they say they're too specific. They narrow down what students should be learning. Knowledge should be about expanding the student's horizon. And why do we have to specify? And the example of a recipe is so wonderful because the recipe tells you how to make the cake. But within that recipe, you have opportunities to innovate as well. You can change some of the ingredients as an educator a little bit. If you know, for example, that you're cooking a cake and one of the people who you're making that cake for is gluten intolerant, like me, then you can change the flour from wheat to rice flour. You can do this, but the learning objectives are so important because without them, how do we know that the curriculum is achieving its stated aims and its stated purpose? Without them, we don't have any way of benchmarking the success of the curriculum. We can say the students are doing well, they're passing all the exams, but we don't actually know if the curriculum is releasing the bigger potential that it has within it. So this example is really, really nice. And you might hear me reuse that example of it being like a recipe. So thank you very much, Doctor. Colleagues, is it okay if we move on? If anyone has their hand up and you have a burning insight you want to share, please feel free to share it. But if not, we might move on to the next slide, if that's okay. Okay. Thank you so much. These are great comments. And as I said, we'll have an opportunity to come back and do some more discussion in just a moment. Thank you very, very much indeed. Okay. Now, this question, why do we start the curriculum design process with learning objectives? We've already answered it in the discussion, because the learning objectives provide a roadmap and a benchmark that connects students to a learner journey and that enable us to carry out quality assurance processes and ensure that the curriculum that we're providing is fit for purpose. It meets the needs of employers and accrediting bodies. It also informs students about the learning process and helps them to engage with that learning process. And it helps us to make design decisions. It helps us to know where we're going. So that's really the question has already been answered by the discussion that we've had, which is wonderful. There are also some theoretical reasons, so reasons that come from the evidence around curriculum design that are really, really important and that help us to have a rationale for placing learning objectives at the start of our curriculum design process. You'll have probably, many of you will have heard of John Biggs, who's an educational developer, and he has this notion of constructive alignment. And constructive alignment is a way of describing the ways in which different components of the curriculum fit together. So learning objectives come first, and they describe the outcomes that we intend the students to achieve when they complete the module. There should be an alignment then between the learning objectives and how we assess and how we design assessment activities, because the assessment should be an opportunity for students to demonstrate that they've successfully achieved the learning objectives. And then learning activities, which we'll talk about in later workshops, these are ways of closing the gap between the student and the graduate, and also closing the gap between the learning objective and the assessment. Because if we describe to students the outcome of that learning in a learning objective, and if we then assess students on how successfully they've achieved that learning objective, then what we teach and the way in which we teach has to balance these two things. It should be a way of closing the gap between the learning outcomes and the assessments. So this is really, really important. And for John Biggs and for a lot of other instructional designers or academic developers who've talked about instructional design, the learning objectives come first, because without that, it's very, very difficult for us to align our curriculum. Another concept that you might have heard about is the concept of backwards design, which is that same methodology. It's where we start with a learning objective, we design an assessment, and then we work out how we're going to teach our curriculum. And backwards design is opposite to what we call forwards design, which is an approach that has traditionally been taken to curriculum design over hundreds and hundreds of years all over the world. So forwards design is where we start by thinking about the learning activities. We think about the content in the curriculum, and we think about how we're going to teach that. So sometimes you might start with a lecture. I'm going to do these lectures, and I'm going to get the students to do this part of homework. And then we develop assessments around those learning activities. So the assessment becomes an assessment of how well students have listened in the lecture, which is not what we want to do at all. And then usually what happens is we take this learning that we've already designed in our head before we've even started with the curriculum design process, and we try to make connections to the learning goals of the course. And what Wiggins and McTighe say is that this is the wrong way of doing things. So backwards design starts off with the learning objectives. And once those learning objectives have been established, the second stage involves consideration of assessment. And how we teach the content then comes third. It comes next. And this avoids the temptation to take a very content-driven approach to curriculum design, which is very behaviourist and which almost always sees us designing teaching activities that are about conveying knowledge to students. It's not about what the students can do or what the values that we want the students to develop. It's just about what the students know. And this idea about having an empty receptacle and then we fill that receptacle up with knowledge, this very kind of old-fashioned approach to curriculum design. That's what backwards design, starting with learning objectives, then designing our assessment, and then designing teaching activities, is intended to help us avoid, to get away from that forwards design approach. And that's right, Fiona. Forwards design is one reason why we end up with an overstuffed curriculum, a curriculum that can't breathe. Well, can I bring you in to elaborate on that, Fiona?
So I come from a nursing background, and I don't know if I've got any of colleagues in the room who are also teach in a nursing curriculum, but it's certainly one curriculum where we have the need to, we need to teach them this, and we need to teach them this, and we can't forget this and this and this. And in the end, it's so full, it's like a chair that has been stuffed so full of things that you can't even sit in the chair. It's so uncomfortable. But I prefer to think of a curriculum that can't breathe, because there's no space for the students to learn, to think. They're just being constantly bombarded with information. So that's right, a curriculum that can't breathe is something that we need to avoid. And I think that within my experiences, that while we think that we design with learning objectives first, it is still very common for people to begin with content and what do we think needs to go into this curriculum, rather than what do we want them to be able to know and do and value at the end of it. So
yeah. You know, and I have to give praise to our colleagues at Akashi who are with us on the call, because the Jordanian National Qualification Framework, when I looked at this and I looked at what's required for curricula to be approved through the Jordanian National Qualification Framework, I think it would be very difficult for you to present a forwards designed module or program to Akashi and for that to be awarded accreditation status, because they really, Akashi have really understood the importance of taking an objectives-driven approach to module design. And so you kind of, you're not swimming against the current in Jordan if you take a backwards design approach. You're really working in a way which has the kind of approval as a conceptual level and a methodological level from your quality assurance committee in Akashi. So yeah, very, very well done, Akashi, for embedding that approach within the Jordanian National Qualification Framework. The one point on the slide that I do want to mention there is to remember that curriculum design is a bit of an iterative process. And iterative is a word which, if you haven't heard it before, it means going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So although we start with our learning objectives, and then we design our assessments, and then we design our teaching activities, sometimes it might be the case that when you get to the teaching activities, you realize, actually, that assessment doesn't really match up with the teaching activities that I've provided. And maybe there's a better assessment that would help my curriculum to be aligned more effectively. And it might even be that you have some provisional learning objectives, you design your assessments, and then you go back and say, actually, the learning objective, I've got this great assessment, but the learning objectives aren't really supported by that assessment. So there can be a little bit of weaving back and forth between the elements of backwards design. And I think it's important to know that this isn't just rigid at the level of design, and it's not just linear. There are opportunities for you to, go back, like any piece of art. I've talked about the art of curriculum design. You start, you go back and forth, you change it, and that's absolutely okay as well.
You've got a couple of hands up.
Sure.
So if we just want to check if they're old hands or new hands.
No, they're new. So Ahmad and Ali, you both have hands up. So feel free, Ahmad, to come in.
I want to talk about backward design that's answer or addresses answers of 3 questions. What do you want the students to learn?
لأنه كان دكتور سعد وأنا
And
مسافر وما بحكي له أي خبر لسه بدل.
and how will we know if students have learned it through design some assessments? And finally, it's answer a question of what do we do to help students to learn it through designing instructional learning activities and experiences. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yes, that's wonderful. What do we want students to learn is your learning objectives. How will we know that they've learned it? Assessments. And then how will we help them to learn? That's your teaching activities. That's wonderful. Thank you. Very, very wonderful insight. Ali, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm talking now. I'm talking about Akashi goal from Jordan National Qualification Framework and specific for backward design point. Yes, the Akashi is focusing on the result. Yeah. Emphasizes what students should be able to covering content and how the university can covering all the content in the course and how we can support the student to success. So we can help the student to see the purpose and of their learning and providing a clear path to success. And we can release the gap between labor market and course plan or course object or learning outcomes. So this is the main point from Akashi. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you. I'm so happy that you put your hand up and you didn't mind me showering some praise on Akachi's. Really
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay. And just this point here, the reason why we start with learning objectives is because we believe that learning objectives are the keystones of curriculum design. And a keystone is a piece of a building that locks the whole thing together. So when you're building an arch out of bricks, the keystone is the brick in the middle that connects the 2 parts of the arch together. And so we think about learning objectives in that way as well. They're a keystone. They're the thing that makes the whole thing fit together. And so this naturally leads us on to the question of how do we write effective learning objectives? Because if we know they're important, we know they're keystones, we know they're important for all the protagonists within the curriculum, then it's really important that we get it right. And within the BOLD framework, which our colleagues at Middle East University will know because we talked about it with them for many, many days a few years ago, Bloom's taxonomy of learning is something that we use to help us to write good learning objectives. So for any of you who are unfamiliar with Bloom's taxonomy of learning, it relates back to Benjamin Bloom, who created this taxonomy, these levels to describe the different processes of learning that a student will go through. And these levels are all related to those knowledge, skills, attributes, behaviours, and abilities that we want students to develop as they undertake a unit of learning. So he says it starts with lower order thinking skills, and it's a taxonomy. So as you move up the pyramid, we move towards these higher order skills. So what a student does at the top of the pyramid is more complex than what a student does at the bottom of the pyramid. And the taxonomy moves from remembering information, understanding ideas and concepts. These are the lower order of the taxonomy. In the middle of the taxonomy, we get students to do things with that knowledge. So when we talk about apply and analyze, this is where students start to use information in new situations or make connections between different ideas or place different ideas in some sort of an order based on their usefulness or their appropriateness. And when we get to the very, very top of the pyramid, these higher order thinking skills, we want students to be doing things, to be creating new knowledge and justifying things, justifying an argument or justifying a decision. So where this is helpful for us is that the levels of Bloom's taxonomy are associated with verbs. They're things that students can do at different stages of this taxonomy. And the verbs are very, very helpful because the approach that we use to writing learning objectives and the formula that we have for writing good learning objectives, it requires us to think about a verb, a doing word, a word that we can include within our learning objective that helps the learning objective to be, specific and measurable and a description of behavior, things that students can do. And the taxonomy also helps us to think about how we relate learning objectives to particular levels of study. So an introductory course might focus on learning objectives that we develop from the base of the pyramid. We might want students to be doing a little bit of remember, understand, and apply. But in advanced courses, certainly postgraduate courses, we want students to be moving up the pyramid so that we're getting them to do more complex things with knowledge. So as well as providing us with a really good formula, which I'll talk you through in a moment, Bloom's taxonomy can also help us think about the appropriateness of the learning objectives that we create to the level of study. So this, I know these diagrams that I'm using on these slides, they're quite small. I've actually pasted them onto the Workshop 2 folder in Teams. So if anyone wants to see a bigger version of that, we can either post them in the chat or you can find them here. So how then do we use Bloom's taxonomy to write a learning objective? The first thing that we do is we use this wonderful tool, which was created at, I think it's Johns Hopkins University in the United States, which is called the Bloom's Wheel. And it has all of the different areas of the taxonomy written at the center of the wheel. As you move out from the wheel into that middle section, you have verbs that you can choose that help you to articulate what it is at that level that you want students to be able to do. And then as you move towards the end, there are learning activities, which we won't touch on today, but they're very, very useful. And as I said, I have copies of that on Teams, and I could probably also just, excuse me, put a copy of the Bloom's Wheel into the chat here for everyone, so you have a bigger version and you can actually see what that is. So the first thing we do for our learning objective is we have to work out where on the taxonomy we want to be working. Is it a lower order, a mid order, or a higher order set of skills, capabilities, and attitudes that we want the students to develop? And once we find the level of the taxonomy that we want to work at, then we have to start our learning objective with a nice thing called a STEM sentence. So this is something that comes at the beginning of a learning objective, and it's usually something like, after completing this module, you will be able to. Then what we want to do is, when we've selected the level, we can choose one of the verbs from these sections of the wheel that best matches the learning objective that we've chosen. And then all we do is we combine and we put it together, and we have a complete sentence that is specific, it's measurable, it has a verb within it, and it has a STEM sentence at the beginning. So it's a really, really simple way of writing learning objectives. You start with a STEM sentence, you pick a section of the wheel, you choose the appropriate level and the verb, and then you combine them together to make a sentence. And if you've never written a learning objective this way, that sounds a little bit abstract. So what we're going to do is actually get you in your groups, in your university groups, and we'll get you to play around with these learning objectives. Before we do that, I just want to check, is it clear what it is that I'm describing here in terms of this approach? Is it clear how we write a learning objective using Bloom's wheel? Okay.
Sean,
Yes.
before we go into the activity, Suha has just put something in the chat, and I think we might be able to address this by the activity coming up. But what it says is, any tips on how to write learning objectives? Oh, it's just moved. Whoops, a daisy. It's just flicked upwards. Oh, Suha. Suha, it was to do with writing up learning objectives for a course that's a large course that has got students who have got some limited abilities. And I'm thinking we might be able to incorporate that into the activity that we've got coming. Can we look at that at some point?
We can. I mean, that's a very, very good question. And I think, like I said, it's important not to be too rigid when we're using these tools, because if we know that we have a master's course, but the students who arrive on day one of that master's course are not ready to work at a master's level, then we have to take them up the pyramid. So if you think the pyramid has remember, understand, apply, and that's before we get to those higher order thinking skills, then they have to understand concepts before they can apply them. And they have to be able to apply them to different situations before they can analyze them. And in order to evaluate a concept or an argument, you have to have done a thorough analysis. And in order to create, you have to have evaluated first. So all of these areas of the taxonomy, they're progressive. They build on one another. So if we want students to be working at the top of the pyramid, but we meet them at the bottom of the pyramid, then we should write learning objectives that build in complexity and take them from the bottom to the top. So you start off by thinking, what is it that they need to know, first of all, before they can start analysing and synthesising that knowledge. And then once they've done that, at the very end, once you've taken them through a journey, then they could start to do creative things with new knowledge. But then when you're writing your learning objectives, you can have a spread across the pyramid. It's not just that all the learning objectives for a master's course have to be at the top of the pyramid. You can have a range across, and usually that's very, very helpful. And as you're designing your learning activities and your assessments, then you start with the lower order learning objectives and think about how you'll teach them before moving through the module and kind of moving students up the pyramid as well. But yeah, we can have a conversation about that after we've done this little activity, if that would be helpful, Suhan. We can maybe get some insights from colleagues at other universities as well who've had some experience with this. But thank you very, very much for sharing that question, because there are no bad questions. This is a really, really good question. So what we're going to do now is I've pasted a copy of the Bloom's wheel into the chat, and I want you to do a thought experiment, an imaginative activity, a scenario-based learning activity. So I want you in your university groups or in Akashi, you have your own group as well, to think through this scenario and try to write some learning objectives for a unit of learning that we'll all be doing this for the same unit of learning. And so the scenario is that you have been asked as a team to design a series of 4 study skills workshops that are going to be delivered to first-year undergraduate students in your university. It's going to take place in the first week of the first semester, which we in the UK would call induction week. And the purpose of the course, the aim, is to support students to adapt to teaching, learning, and assessment in a modern university environment. That's the aim. So what I want you to do is come up with a few learning objectives using the Bloom's wheel and using this formula that I showed you on the previous slide. So start with a STEM sentence. Find where you want to work on the pyramid. Choose some verbs and then put them together into a learning objective. And And we're going to give you about 20 minutes for this. So if anyone needs to go and get a cup of tea or refresh themselves, you can feel free to do that within the 20 minutes as well. And when we come back, we'll ask you to put your learning objectives into the chat, and we'll have a little conversation about that then. Does that make sense for everyone? Is it clear what I'm asking people to do? Professor from Jadara, you have your hand up. Would you like to ask a question?
Good afternoon.
Hello, yes.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
this is Bilal Zakaibi from Jadara University. Just want to put some comments. Here in Jordan now, we are working with on the NQF. So we are using the NQF descriptors. So we have knowledge, skills, and competences. So as what I understood from your explanation, you are requested us to write our objectives or learning outcomes according to the Bloom taxonomy, the 6 levels.
Yes.
So go to understanding and knowledge. So if we can combine some of them, those levels, to make it similar as the NQF descriptors. For example, the understanding and the remembering, I think this one in knowledge.
Yes.
Creativity in competences. So we are working and we divided our outcomes. We wrote them according to the NQF descriptors, those 3 descriptors.
Yes.
And we are using Bloom verbs in writing our outcomes. We are now currently using Bloom verbs, and we don't use the Bloom taxonomy, the levels. Those levels. Okay, this is my comment.
That's absolutely wonderful. It's fine. And it's really, really good that you've made those connections, because the Jordanian National Qualification Framework lines up very beautifully with Bloom's taxonomy. Like you said, the lower, the mid, and the high level, they relate very much to the areas in the Jordanian National Qualification Framework. So we're doing this as a way of helping you to find verbs, because sometimes the verbs can be the difficult thing to find. And we want to create a standardized approach to writing these learning objectives, and we'll then be able to follow through into the assessment workshops and the teaching workshops. So as you've described it, Professor, this is a really good way of approaching how you design learning objectives using Bloom's, but also you have to remember the context, which is the Jordanian National Qualification Framework as well. So thank you for that point. Okay,
thanks.
I have opened breakout rooms for everyone apart from our colleagues in Al Zaytun. So I have just given you a room. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open all of these rooms, and if you can choose your university room from the list, then take, as I said, about 15 minutes now to complete the activity that I have. I've just pasted it into the chat as well so that you can find that. Use the Bloom's wheel and come up with a few learning objectives for this imaginary course that you'll be teaching, which is for first-year students, study skills in an induction week. So I'll open the rooms and ask you to choose your own university from the list. There should be one for Akashi as well, if colleagues in Akashi would like to go and have some time in there to do this activity too. And I'll call you back. Yeah, I'll call you back at 1:45, I think, so we don't completely run out of time.
Just a question, please. Can you share with us the Bloom wheel?
Yes, I've put it into the chat.
I can't find it in the chat.
Oh, let me add it again. Sorry if it's not.
It's at 10:26. It was posted by Sean at 10:26. If you look at the timeline.
Okay. Maybe if you just send it again, it will. Yeah. Now everyone can see it. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Brilliant.
Thank you. So yes, colleagues, feel free to take yourself off to your breakout rooms.
Sean, I'm just going to summarize the challenge and put it in the broadcast.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
Sian, please, I cannot get into the room yet.
Oh, why? Is peculiar. Allow participants to choose room.
Me too, Najwa Ash'al, MEU.
Okay. Let me try that again, sorry, because it should allow you to choose your room.
Me as well, Sean.
Yeah, sorry. Just give me
Mr. Sean, I think we need to click on more and then
Me
click on
too,
join.
please. Brenda.
Just give me 1 second. I've realized what the problem is. So. I thought Zoom was going to be kind to us, Fiona. It appears.
Yeah, I know.
Mr. Sean, I think there were an option visible to me and then it's gone. When I click on more, there is an option called join a breakout room.
Yes.
And now it's gone.
Yeah, I'll open up the breakout rooms again in just 1 second. So it wasn't letting you choose the room for some reason, but it should be doing it now. So if I open them, you should all be able to choose your room now. Is that correct?
Now the option came up.
Okay.
Brilliant. We love technology. Just saying.
Sean,
Hi.
I'm still outside the rooms and I don't have the option in more
Okay.
to choose the room. Najwa Ash'al, MEU.
Yeah, me too. Please.
You don't have the option. Okay.
No, I don't have the option in more.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind, colleague, if you can't join a room, can you change your name so that you put the name of your university in your name, and I'll try to move.
Yeah, I put it already. Najwa Ash'al, MEU.
Thank you. There's a long list, so I'll just work through that list.
Yep.
حبيبي فادي. هلا.
Dr. Thaer, please mute your.
Fiona, Tarek, if you are also able to help people get into their breakout rooms, there's still seems
Yes, sure, Sean. I'm trying to do so.
seems that there's a lot of people who still can't get in.
Excuse me,
Yeah, if we're still,
but Mukta University room is not in the list, please.
which one?
Mukta University.
Oh,
How are you getting on, Tarek?
so the university that's not in the list, if you choose room 28, we have a spare one, just because I wasn't sure if all the universities would be on the list. So
I think Mota is there because there's Obada and Dr. Obada and Dr. Isra from
Okay,
Malta
okay.
University.
I
Yeah.
got to see it. Okay.
Thank you. We're nearly there, I think.
Well done.
Still have a few colleagues.
Nearly there, I think.
Nearly.
So playful, isn't it? It's yeah.
If any of you are still waiting for a breakout room, if you can just make sure that you have changed your name so you have the name of your university, it will help myself and Tarek. I've been called for help in a breakout room, so I'll just jump across if that's okay, Tarek and Fiona, and see.
Yeah. They okay, Sean?
Yeah, they're fine. They're fine.
We have Dr. Adil from Malta University. Dr. Adil can go to the...
Dr. Adil, okay.
Dr. Abdullah Yusri from Islamic University.
Getting you there.
Dr. Lubna Al-Jazi from Prince Sumaya University.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe next time we should put them into university breakout rooms in the beginning, and then we can recreate them later. That might be easiest to do.
Yeah. So I know some name here. Yeah.
Nearly there. 7 not assigned, but that includes me and Tarek, I think.
Dr. Lubna Al-Jazi from Prince Sumaya University.
So, yeah.
Dr. Adil, you hear me?
Yes, Ali. I'm in, but I'm searching for the room. I can't find it. I will try again.
على more
more joint.
هلا من عند المور، مش الثلاث نقاط المور علي؟ The meeting there is meeting setting and disconnect audio.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you click more, or it should give you an opportunity to do breakout rooms.
I clicked more. It gives me two options: meeting settings and disconnect.
And do you have breakout rooms anywhere on the?
No, actually, I cannot find it. Chat, reactions, share, record, captions, report, apps.
Sarah, let's put you in.
Okay, I'll check it now with him.
Yeah, hello, Sean. Can you hear me?
Hi.
It seems that there is a problem with for some of our colleagues to join the rooms.
Yeah.
Can you let me to join?
So I think
Lisa?
Sajida and Sarah from our side,
Mhm.
and I think Jihad, they're not able to join the just breakout room.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So the only ones I can see who aren't assigned now is
Jihad,
Sajida Musleh.
Sajda, yeah, and Jihad.
Yeah.
Where does Sajda need to go? Which university?
Just university.
Okay.
Just
gone.
Let me see if
they should all be there now. Everyone should be.
There's also Ala Dalki. Dr. Ala Dalki also in the just group.
Allah. So Allah has been assigned, but let me see what we can do.
Okay, if all of them have been assigned, this might be put me back to the just group.
Yeah, they haven't joined. It looks like they're in, but they haven't joined.
Thank you, Dr.
Welcome. Can you send me back to the room?
Now you're stuck.
Yes.
Still here,
I want to join my colleagues.
I'm not sure how I move you back to the room, actually.
I think you have to, the way I figured it out, you have to send him somewhere else and then move him back.
No, okay.
Yeah, I know it's like really weird, but you could send him to the Akashi room and then quickly move him out.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. Might work.
That's how I figured out how to do it.
There's a break. I can join. Don't worry. There is like a button here. It's called the breakout rooms. I can choose the room that I can join.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Thank you so much. See you in
15
minutes.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye, Ali.
Right, we've got a couple of people back.
Dr. Sharaf Zabi from Amman Arab University.
Amman Arab, okay.
Sharaf Zabi.
Sharaf, you should go. That should take to Amman Arab.
You have a great mind for remembering this, Dr. Ali.
Yeah. Dr. Lubna Al-Jazi, you hear me? Let's go to the, yeah. Lubna, Dr. Lubna. Dr. Ala Dalki from Just. Dr. Faris from Philadelphia University. Dr. Faris, you hear me? Dr. Faris.
So I'll because we took so long getting people out into the rooms, maybe I'll give them just 2 more minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah. We have Paris and Adi Maaita, Firas, Dr. Mahmoud, Dr. Sadiba.
I'm just going to get some water, Fiona. My throat is drying up, but I'll bring everyone back in in 1 minute. Just 2 seconds.
Dr. Alada, please go to the dust.
Yeah, I think Sean worked really hard to get this all set up in advance, and for some reason it's not playing. It's not playing ball. I don't know if it's volume, a volume of presetting it, and it's just somehow I'm not sure. I'm not sure also why people can't see that how to get themselves. So we'll need to figure it out. That's why we love technology, isn't it?
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah.
The element of unpredictability. That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to close the breakout rooms and because Sean will be back in a minute.
Dr. Muhammad Hajjawi from ASU.
Okay, let's close the breakout room. All right.
Dr. Tayo from Clarence University.
I've closed the rooms.
Oh, good, Fiona. Thank you.
The people will be coming back. We'll just have to try and figure out why it's not behaving. Because I don't understand why it's not behaving. But thank you, Tariq, for doing all that background work, getting people sorted. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Professor. Yeah.
We have finished the homework. Shall we submit, or we can, or what's the procedure?
You finished the work in the breakout room?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. We'll bring everyone back and then we'll get people to post their...
already rejoined the main session.
Yeah.
We are waiting for you to
ليش
start.
رجعونا؟ ليش رجعونا على الرئيس؟
بس أنا رجعت.
ما قعدنا ربع ساعة.
Coming back.
We are out of the.
Oh, so we
I should
back.
come
Yeah.
back just
return
now.
back to return back to the group.
Sean? Hello?
Sean, I muted everybody, so you got muted as well.
Oh,
I'm already out of the room.
thank you. Yes, go back in the main room now.
You're back.
Thank you. So I'm sorry that was a very quick activity for you to do. What I would like you to do, however, those of you who were able to come up with some learning objectives, can someone from each university paste your learning objectives into the chat so that we can see the learning objectives that you came up with?
Dr. Muhammad?
Dr. Ahmad, yeah?
Oh, here we go. They're coming up, Sean.
Thank you.
Oh, wow, look.
Excellent. So we're just looking through these. So from Ahmad Madan, identify key university resources such as libraries, study centres, counselling services and academic advisors. Identify, fantastic, very, very good verb. And then explain the main differences between high school and university and use time management techniques to create a weekly study schedule. These are very, very good learning objectives that follow the formula that we ask you to use very, very nicely. Wonderful. Philadelphia, know about the classroom environment and university facilities, libraries, registration offices, etc. I'm going to pick
Jadaras is great. Look, I'm just going for the verbs. Describe, construct, implement. Wow, that really nice.
Very, very good. Yes.
we're not going to be able to look at them all, Sean, but this is amazing. Look, we've got, and really sitting well, those verbs that you would expect to be induction at the start of a course: describe, outline, discuss, demonstrate. This is lovely. Recognize.
Fantastic.
I
yeah.
think they're all lovers of the wheel. I think all of
Absolutely.
our colleagues here are Bloom's aficionados.
Absolutely.
That's the right word.
And the AAU team are so confident about that. They've actually taken control of the session and are sharing their screens. So they have
Yay! That's what we like.
list, show, explain, describe. Again, really nice verbs from the base of that pyramid. That's excellent.
Yeah. Oh, this is brilliant. Really.
بدي اسالك هاي بتاعت AAU هاي شو مكيفين عليها؟ ليش مكيفين عليها؟ بس فهميني بالله عليك.
That's really good. In some ways, being playful and being given the task of imagining a course that you don't have anything to do with and writing them is a really good challenge to give you. Of course, your homework is going to be focused back in your particular course module that you've selected, which Sean's going to talk with you about. But this is great work, really nice.
Absolutely. Right, let me share my screen again and I'll get the slide back up.
Sean, if we may share only the first one.
Yeah.
The 6.
Please.
Maybe we need the access, I think.
Oh, you want to share your screen?
Oh, or should we send you the file?
If you just paste the learning objective into the chat, then we can see them coming up there.
And then Sean and I will be able to see them outside of this and be able to look at general feedback as well.
Yeah.
Fab, thank you.
So the Bloom's wheel with the formula that I've given you, which is start with a stem sentence, pick an area of the wheel, choose a verb, and then use that to construct your learning objective. I also have a tool that I want to give you to recognize the difference between a strong and a good learning objective and one which maybe, we don't talk about bad practice here at all, but one where maybe there's an opportunity to develop further skills around this. And many of you will have seen this SMART acronym before. I love it because we have a Professor Smart here. I presume the name came first and not the acronym, but that remains to be seen. So these are 5 sets of questions that we can use to ask ourselves whether or not a learning objective is a good one, is a strong one. So the first is the S in the word SMART, and the S stands for specific. And when we say specific in the context of learning objectives in higher education, we're asking the question, are the learning objectives clear and concise? And remember Fiona saying really nicely, we should write these from the perspective of students. So are they understandable to anyone reading them? Would a student be able to understand a learning objective? So specific, that's the first question we ask ourselves. The next one is measurable. So are they observable? And crucially for us, are they accessible? Is it very, very clear how we will get the students to demonstrate to us that they've successfully achieved the learning objectives? So the colleagues from INU, for example, you've already done a little bit, some of the assessment, because your remember learning objective has said list various applications of IT in everyday life and professional settings. And the assessment activity for that could be simply to get students to write a list. So the learning objectives should very, very clearly be linked to potential assessment activities. If we want students to be able to explain something, then the assessment, we should ask them to do that explanation. If we want them to apply knowledge to a new situation, then we can give them a scenario and get them to choose a range of different concepts and ask them to show us how they would apply them. So that measurable is very, very important. If the learning objective has words like know or appreciate or even understand, they're not always measurable because it's very difficult for you to measure the extent to which a student knows something or appreciates something. So instead of know, you could use verbs like describe or explain or categorize or list. And instead of appreciate, you could get students to do, choose a learning objective that's more from the kind of apply or evaluate area of the pyramid. Okay. The next question is, are they achievable? So are they appropriate to the level of learning? And will they be supported by learning and teaching methods? So if you're asking students to do something at the top of the pyramid in an induction workshop for week 1 of year 1, then possibly they're not achievable for the students. So they have to be realistic. Are they relevant as well? Do they reflect the work you've done to create a student and a graduate persona? Do they reflect the disciplinary knowledge, durable skills, and graduate attributes that we want your students to develop? And are they time-bound? Do they speak to a unit of time? When we're writing higher education learning objectives, normally they do, because they usually start with, by the end of this module, you will. But these are 5 criteria. And those of you who are responsible in your university for supporting other people to develop learning objectives, or if you're in a quality assurance role where you're having to, you're having to accredit or you're having to approve learning objectives, I would advise you to create some sort of a guide that uses these 5 criteria and maybe other criteria as well, so that it's very, very clear that people know what's a good and what's a bad learning objective.
And the examples will help hugely. And one of the things to watch out for is that the learning outcome is actually a task and not a learning outcome. That quite often happens, as in produce a portfolio. Well, that's actually a task. What it isn't saying is what the portfolio is going to evidence in terms of learning. That's one of the things that I often see, that a learning outcome is a task and it's not actually a focus on what is going to be learned and how you're going to know.
Exactly. So what I want us to do just for a few minutes, I know we're quickly running out of time, but I have some learning objectives here on the screen that are in need of improvement. And using that SMART acronym, are they specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound? I want you to tell me just what's wrong with these learning objectives. So you can use the chat or you can put your hand up and tell us. So we have Dr. Abada, you have your hand up. Tell me what's wrong with some of these learning objectives.
Hi everybody. Actually, I have 2 questions, please, because
Okay.
I raised my hand before you just mentioned that what we need to do now. The first question, when we were working on the previous task, actually we thought in a logical way or systematic way to find first, sorry, to start with first finding the study skills that we need to develop our objectives around. Okay.
Yes.
So, and we found like different number, different ones like time management, note taking, active listening, critical thinking, memory techniques, readings, and a bit of a long list of them available. Okay. So, do we need now to apply the Bloom wheel on each one of these skills that we need to achieve, or just to distribute them? Can we make, like, for example, a matrix?
I mean, I think that's really, really good. And I'll talk about this in just a
Because this was not actually clear.
Yeah. So it should be, yes, the learning objectives, when we're doing the learning objectives task for the modules that we're designing, for our homework, I want you to start with the aims and the disciplinary knowledge and the durable skills and build your learning objectives off of those. But I'll talk about that when we do the homework. So I will come back to that, Dr. Abada, in just a moment. But yeah, colleagues, tell me what's wrong with these learning objectives. Ahmad.
Yes, I want to talk about the first learning objective that use the verb understand.
Yes.
I think it's a vague verb.
Absolutely.
And it's not easily measurable.
Yes, absolutely. So if you see understand, then yeah, that's the question. Is it specific and is it measurable? And you will understand the basics of Kanafa. How do you know that they've understood the basics of Kanafa?
I think we can use list
Yes.
rather than understand.
So you would think about what you want students to do there. Yeah. Do you
Yes.
want them to list the ingredients? Do you want
Yes.
them to evaluate the quality of kanafa? Do you want them to compare kanafa to other, like, what is it that you actually want the students to do?
A history of Kunafa.
A history of
Yeah,
kanafa.
why not?
Yeah, absolutely. My history of kanafa started 2 years ago, and I am in love. But that's a different that's a different conversation. Anis
Thank you.
from Philadelphia, tell me what's wrong with some of these other learning objectives.
The second objective, I don't think it's easily measurable to appreciate. How do you measure appreciation?
Yeah, how do you measure appreciation? Exactly. Yeah. The
And the
third
fourth,
one, sorry, go
uh,
on, please.
the fourth objective, I don't think it's achievable.
I think God himself would find that a difficult objective to achieve. So yes, that's definitely not achievable. The third one, the reason why the third one is there is because exactly that point that Fiona made. This describes learning. It describes an activity. It doesn't describe the learning objective associated with it. So thank you so much for your insights today, colleagues. I know that with this, we ran out of time again, and I'm just learning as we do these workshops. I'm making the content less and less, and we're trying to give you more and more time for conversation. So we'll get there and we'll finish on time in 2 weeks' time. So what I want you to do now, and this hopefully addresses the question that the colleague asked about this. What we want you to do for homework is in your university groups, we want you to take the module that you've chosen, which has aims and it has durable skills and it has disciplinary knowledge. And I want you to come up with between 4 and 6 learning objectives for the module that you've chosen. I say 4 to 6 because we don't want you to have hundreds and hundreds of them, because then they stop being manageable. And we don't want you to have too few as well. So 4 to 6 is probably, for the purposes of this activity, a good number. And I want you to create learning objectives using the Bloom's wheel. If you have chosen to design a module that already has learning objectives, so you're doing a redesign, then what I want you to do is do the second activity. Take that SMART acronym, that tool that I gave you, and I want you to tell us how effective the existing learning objectives are using that SMART acronym. And if you think that there's room for improvement, maybe there could be more specificity, maybe they're not so relevant, then change those learning objectives, please. And if you want to keep your learning objectives exactly the same, word for word, as they are currently, then I want you to write a paragraph just explaining why you think these learning objectives are perfect in their current form. So each university should upload a document to their channel on Teams, which I've created for them, which has 4 to 6 learning objectives for a new module, or some comments about the existing learning objectives if you're doing a redesign, and hopefully some suggestions for improvement as well. Fiona, please.
If you do A, improve the existing learning objectives, it would be really helpful to do a track and change so that we can see what you've changed, and actually understanding how now when you look at it, this is how you can see it can be further enhanced. As Sean says, there's no such thing as bad. There's things that always can be improved. So yeah, if you almost show you're working out for A, would be really helpful. And then we're going to go in and give feedback, because this is due on the 18th. So Sean and I are going to be in there giving feedback, or just responding to what you've done. But we'd love to see what you're doing. Thank you.
Wonderful. So colleagues, thank you so much for your time. I'm so sorry for going a little bit over the time that we've been given. But that's been a session on learning objectives that for us are the foundation of the curriculum design process. And we look forward to, as Fiona said, we look forward to going into see the homework that you do on Teams. I'll send out an email with that homework again to everyone that Tarek will be able to share with you. So even if you didn't write that down, don't worry, the instructions will be coming soon. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for a workshop on assessment. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your contributions. It's been wonderful, and we'll look forward to seeing your homework and then seeing you again in 2 weeks' time.
There's a question from Dr. Bayan, a question. Learning objectives or outcomes.
Okay.
I think you talked about Sean, but do you want to just come back to it as people are disappearing? Please go if you need to be somewhere else, folks.
Yes. So this is the definition here. Those specific measurable statements that describe what successful students will know, be able to do, and value upon completion of units of learning. So when I say learning objective, that's what I have in mind. If you call that a learning outcome, then we want learning outcomes. It's that thing there, whatever label you give to describe that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, outcomes are student focused, Bayan, exactly. Yeah, so it should be that description of student behavior, student knowledge, student achievement.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, everyone.
Can I ask another question? I'm so sorry.
Of course, no problem.
Can you please repeat the formula that you gave us for the Bloom taxonomy?
I can. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just quickly going to put
write it in the chat.
I'll put my presentation into the chat.
Yeah, that would be great.
The presentation is also on Teams, and I'll send it to you when I send out the email.
Right.
But the presentation is there, so that's what we've been working off today. So you'll be able to get it from there.
That's great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for Rona.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby.
Bye-bye.
We can almost pretend we're
Thank you,
enjoying.
Noor. Thank you, Tarek. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Tarek. I know.
Bye.
Thank you, Sean and Fiona.
Thank you, my lovely. Always good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sean, please.
Hi.
Hello.
Loving
Is it
your
okay if
thinking,
we-
Dr.
Hi,
May.
Fiona. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. Your thinking's amazing. It's
Thank you,
lovely.
thank you so much. I was wondering if we may share the file that we just worked on during the workshop, then we can get like initial feedback, and then we can just take it and apply it to the homework later.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so I will share it as maybe Microsoft Word file here into the chat, and I will hear back from both of you. That's possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jamal. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Thanks for your contributions.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
See you later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
So Fiona, while people are just dropping off, Isabel is free next Wednesday morning from about 9 onwards, if that's a good time for us to have a chat, if that's okay.
Yeah, let me just so next on the 17th I can definitely do 9, did you say? Yeah, that's
or,
grand.
or 9:15 or something like that.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
I've got I'm running a half-hour workshop, on at 10 o'clock. So
Okay.
as long as I'm finished about 10 minutes before then, that's great.
Yeah, we'll get you finished before then. And yeah, I'll take the slides from the kind of the bold, the sort of standard bold workshop framework, but then I think we'll be doing quite a bit of tailoring it to the experiences from these workshops. But
Yeah, that's absolutely grand. That's wonderful. Here we go. There's Dr. Maya's activity that she wanted us to just give some feedback on. How do you want to do that with the things that have come into chat? Do you want to? I gave feedback on some of them as they were coming flying in, but obviously I didn't manage to do 28.
Yeah, of course. I think the main benefit is going to be on the homework activities. So if people have asked for any feedback, is highly appreciated. Sure.
Right, I'm pulling yours off, Dr. Mays, and I will hang on. Well, I will do when I put it in the right place. It's just gone. It was just downloading into somewhere completely different. Hold on. Right, let me just grab that. I think I've managed to be there. Good to work with you, Dr. Mays. Let me just see that I've saved that right. Oh. No, where did you just go? Right, download it properly.
Are you still there, Mays? Yes, you are. This is very good.
Yes, I'm in.
This is very, very good. So they've Fiona, I don't know if you've opened the document.
I have. I've now got it open. Yeah.
So they've mapped it to all the levels of blooms, which is fantastic.
So what's your role at the University of Jordan?
I am an associate professor in counseling and mental health, Department of Counseling and Special Education, but I am as well the vice director of the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching.
Ah, right, okay. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? This is lovely. I tell you what you're really good at, and I can see it when you're in chat as well. You've got a really precise way of thinking, but students sit at the center of what you're thinking. You're very, very student-centered in your approach. That's what I can.
Yes, that's true. I'm client-centered therapy person, and I'm transferring this approach to student-centered, approach. So.
Often our discipline travels with us, and it travels with us in lots of different ways. And you can see that person-centeredness.
Exactly.
But a beautiful use of verbs. Yeah. What are you thinking, Sean?
I just think they're great. I mean, I would never have imagined taking students in an induction workshop series like that all the way to create. But then, yeah, you're getting them to design time management strategies tailored to their needs, and then sharing that with peers and younger students to mentor them. Like I think in your way of thinking, you're actually not limiting students' capabilities, but you're stretching them. And I think a good learning objective should really stretch students. I really like, there's an educational theorist called Vygotsky that I really like.
I knew you were going to go there.
You know Vygotsky? So he has this idea of the zone of proximal development. And it's this idea that you have the students' capabilities on a graph. On one axis is the students' capabilities, what they can do. And then on this other axis, this is the level of challenge that you give the students. And the way in which students learn the best is when there's a good balance between the level of capability and the level of challenge. If the challenge is too high, then students disengage. They say, I can't do this, and their motivation goes away. But if the challenge is too low, if the students have too much capability, then they don't learn, because they say, I can do this, I know this already. And so always thinking about how you can use learning objectives to build on what students know and can already do and the values that they already have, but then also challenging them and pushing them. That's really, really important. And when I see these learning objectives, even though it's just a scenario, it's a theoretical activity,
Yeah.
I can see that your university really thinks about learning objectives in a very positive way to drive student success. So I think you've done a great job. I don't have any comments other than that to share on this.
Thank you. So we will use the same platform and just transfer it to the course that we worked on last week.
Yeah.
Dr. Abdullah, you are with us straight. Dr. Muhammad?
Yes,
Can you
I'm
hear me?
here. Yeah.
Okay. So Dr. Muhammad also in our group, and he's helping in many technical issues. So he was like sharing the file with